Hi, I'm Ashley Kappel with my co-host Jessica Chariton, and we are here with Real Estate in the Rockies podcast. Today we had Mark Gordon. He is the president-elect of Colorado Association of Realtors, CAR, and he shared some valuable lessons that he's learned being in Vail for 26 years. Cities like Salida and Buena Vista and Gunnison, we might take a lesson from the things that he told us. I think it was very insightful that I learned a lot about as we plan for growth. And then he also shared some wins that are possibly brewing at the national level with regarding real estate that he's helped lobby for, as well as some ideas for the future. So enjoy the show.
Today, we have invited Mark Gordon, who is in Vail, Colorado at the time of our recording today. And he's not only a realtor, but he is now president-elect for the Colorado Association of Realtors. We just had our voting and your election announcement within the past month. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. Yeah, it's pretty cool. And I probably shouldn't even say this on a podcast, but I have serious imposter stuff going on. Right?
That's the kind of stuff we like to hear on a podcast, the inside stuff.
The inside scoop.
Yeah, we have lots of fun questions to visit with you about today, some regarding Colorado Association of Realtors, but some of them are a little bit centered around what Vail has become and what Salida is right now. So we are hoping for some insight on small Colorado mountain towns and what to do and maybe what not to do. Yeah.
There's a lot of lessons to be learned.
Yeah. And I think you've been in Vail for 30 years?
Yeah, 26 years.
Wow.
I moved here in 2000.
Okay.
That's how long I've been in Colorado too, but not Vail.
It went very fast and very slow.
Such is life.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great.
So you've been in Vail for 26 years, and the market is now roughly 90% second homeowners. Looking back, what do you think Vail missed early enough? Didn't that towns like Salida, Buena Vista, and Gunnison still have time to get right?
Vail there's a couple of answers. One, and I think this is probably in most towns, but Vail certainly has this split personality. On one hand, there's this, we are the best, we are Vail. I almost said a bad word, but we are it. Yeah. And then on the other hand, it's that imposter syndrome that I was just saying I had, and we're not sure of our own success. And even more so when the town was first founded and first started getting built, there was real questions about, is this going to work? And I think that as smart as the founders were, and I was lucky enough to actually sit on town council with some of them, as smart as they were, they didn't realize that the government would have to step in on housing. Happily, we have realized that it's been a long transformation, and there's a lot of free market people that feel that the government's job is to fill potholes and do its best to put out fires and have a police force. But in a town such as Vail and some of the small resort towns, I truly believe that the government has to step in and make sure that one of the other things that it works on as infrastructure is housing.
Yep.
And so
otherwise, who's going to fill the potholes?
Yes, people to fill the potholes. When I was on council, so I was on council from 05 to 09. We worked really hard, and I got on council as a housing activist. That was how I got my start in Vail politics. And one of the things that we worked on pretty strongly was inclusionary zoning. And it was so difficult. So on first reading, we didn't have all the council members. It was going to be 20% of net new square footage would have to be deed restricted affordable housing. And we had to compromise for second reading to get it to pass. And we went down to 10%. Inclusionary zone plus some commercial linkage. And we actually got a unanimous council decision once we made that compromise, which that's what governing is you get, we could have stuck to our guns at 20% and not gotten anything, or we could have compromised, gone down to 10%. We figured out what was the most we could get and still get passing vote from the council, and that's what we did. And that was really the start. But then since then, there's been a lot of councils that have just taken the ball and run. We have a huge deed restricted rental project that's going to have 1,000 people living right across from Vail Village that's being built now. The town put the land in, and the town sold bonds to finance it. We have a for sale deed restricted project called Timber Ridge, and that's going to have like 300 condos that are for sale, both for businesses to purchase and individuals and families to purchase. So the town is really making a concerted effort, putting its money where its mouth is, recognizing that housing is infrastructure to keep the town going and keep moving forward. So, I mean, we've been on that. We learned a lot. And the town is always happy to, there's people here that will be happy to talk to any municipality.
I have a question about that inclusionary housing. Is that still in play, the 10%? And what did they do with the money?
There is a fee in lieu that goes towards our housing fund, but what the requirement is that a developer, and it's not in every zone district, it doesn't include for the single family homes, but for condo projects in Vail and Lions Head, 10% of net new square footage, they need to build or purchase and deed restrict housing.
Right. It's 1 out of every 6 in Salida.
Yeah. That's the number we're at right now.
Yeah, and what
units, and it's any kind of housing. I think at this point,
it has to be within anything in Salida city limits.
And what do you guys do with? Does the developer actually provide you with housing, or does a fee in lieu?
They can do either.
Okay, so what we do with our fee in lieu is we've used it to help with the rental program that we're building, with Timber Ridge, with the for sale. Plus, we have the Vail Indeed program where the town will purchase deed restrictions on existing homes and put not a price appreciation cap, but will put a residency requirement that the people that are living there have to work full-time in Eagle County.
It's really interesting. I mean, it's really interesting thinking about 25 years from now.
Yeah. When was that put in place?
The Vail Indeed programs.
And the inclusionary housing.
The inclusionary was like 2007.
Yeah, so 20 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah. And that was pretty groundbreaking for the time. I mean, Aspen had done some stuff in like the 70s and 80s.
Right.
That was attempting this type of infrastructure, as you call it, housing is infrastructure, but and they were very groundbreaking. But I think
there was some other resort communities that had done some stuff like that, and inclusionary zoning had been tested in some courts, so we felt pretty comfortable doing it. And actually 10% is a pretty mild
Right.
concession. And yet the developers were pretty crazy and anti it when it was
Oh, yeah.
happening.
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you look at this, is not on our question list, but I'm just having a conversation with you. If you were looking at Salida's numbers, for example, because that's what we know sitting here, the 1 in 6, what do you think about that? If you forecasted 20 years from now?
I think that's great. That ensures, once a town starts doing things like that, it ensures that there's going to be people, that you don't become a cruise ship in the mountains, that you maintain being a real town. And I am a huge proponent of property rights, but I am also a huge proponent of community. And community is
people who live here.
Second homeowners, definitely. They are equal. They are members of our community, but a community can't be only second homeowners. You need to have teachers and doctors and nurses and accountants and realtors. You always need realtors.
Yeah, I agree. Well, do you feel like it can be dialed back from the numbers Vail is at now? Like, do you see that improving over the next, next 20 years?
We have, in a town of roughly 5,000, we've been losing people over the full-time residents has been the trend, but we're going to put 1,000 people in. So what's that, like 20%?
Wow.
Are going to be moving into town in the near future.
That's
now,
really, really great.
Are they white picket fence, single family homes with 2-car garages? No. But we get to live in Vail.
Yeah.
And that's pretty cool.
Yeah. That's great.
So we understand that Vail has invested $50 million in workforce housing programs, is now pushing short-term rentals, taxes, deed restrictions, and public-private partnerships. Is this a warning story or a success story? You've kind of already answered this, but...
Vail has always been somewhat business friendly. We don't have the huge history of having been a non-tourist town. Being tourist driven is in our DNA because there was nothing here until we started a ski resort. So it's always been a little bit easier to be business friendly. And it's pretty amazing. I'm on the Vail Economic Advisory Council, which is a group that I helped set up when I was on council many years ago with the current town manager at that point. And now it's still the town manager appoints people on it. And we meet once a month. And it's pretty incredible how aligned the business community is with the citizens of town. We're very lucky to have that, and we don't take it for granted, but it's really nice. Everybody is very much in it for the big picture.
Oh, what do you attribute that to? Because I've sat here on the Salida Downtown Business Alliance and in some of those meetings, and it does often feel like there's a lot of push and pull between we're doing it for the tourists, but we need to do things. I am of the belief, I'll just state it here, that if you don't build a town for the people that live there, you're never going to have success on the tourist level, because the people that live here are really what makes the heart of the town. And so when I sit in those meetings, at times I feel a little frustrated because it's like what you're saying, that's the ideal, that the business owners understand, like we're here for the tourists, but we've got to have our town.
Right. I am probably one of the least Pollyannish people around. I'm sort of negative, generally speaking, but Vail continually exceeds my expectations. And
that's cool.
We really have a business community and a citizenry that recognizes the big picture. There are other ski towns, which they're all great and they're great things, but they really have some of the towns have real disdain for their guests.
Yeah.
Gaper days and stuff like that. And they make fun of them in public. And that is really minimized here. Most of the people that live here in town recognize that without the second homeowners and without the tourists, we couldn't live here and we wouldn't have the benefits. And I think that partially comes from the fact that our founding was as a tourist town. We weren't a mining town. We weren't a railroad town. We weren't
all
a
of those.
farming town that has that in the DNA. We were purposefully built to cater to tourists and to accept second homeowners and weekend guests and even day guests as parts of the community that we don't discriminate against, that we treat them like neighbors and we accept them and we appreciate them. And because they come to this town, I get to go see the New York Philharmonic for $28 on the lawn of the Ford Amphitheater.
That's awesome.
That would not happen if Vail was a ranch town.
Yeah. That's a really interesting point, because I think the identity of many small Colorado mountain towns is based in something. Salida was a mining and railroad town and agriculture center. And then here we are now with a Walmart. It's really tricky to change the identity, as you were saying, from something that generations have been entrenched in. And that is, I think, where a lot of that tug and pull comes. And then you do have, I know, like a lot of the business owners have only opened in the last maybe 10 to 20 years. Because if you were here in the 90s, there wasn't anything on our main street. And I think you could say the same like for Gunnison. What was Gunnison? Nobody knew what Gunnison was. And yeah, so that's really interesting to hear that. And I wonder about answering that question of identity in each individual town and figuring out, like, what do we really want?
What do we really want to be? I think that's the theme we've had come up on this podcast over and over and over again. About
they are very self-aware too.
Yeah, that's cool.
Throughout, and happily, we have enough tourists and enough sales tax that we can afford to be self-aware. And, some people make fun of us that we have so many surveys and bring in so many experts and consultants before we do anything. But the track record speaks for itself, that experts are experts for a reason. Mm-hmm. And there was a time, I moved here in 2000, and in about 2001, the community was going through this serious self-doubt and awareness that we were not what we said we were. Our bed base was terrible. Everything was old. We were not providing the world-class experience for our guests that we claimed to be providing. And we brought in a bunch of tourism experts, and they did surveys and they did work in town, and they showed us the reverse bell curve, or I guess it's not the bell curve, and a resort starts and then it goes up and then it reaches the top and then it starts going back down, and Vail was down here. And so it was at that point that the town really embraced what they called the $1 billion renaissance. And it was private-public partnerships. We redid the streets. We redid master plans. We upzoned. We made it and incentivized the private sector to renovate and to reinvent Vail. And it worked. It was incredible. For a while, they were saying that our town bird was the crane because we had so many cranes up. But it was great because we got a Four Seasons and we have Solaris and we had Arabelle, just all of these new properties that are 5-star, beautiful properties. And it really made Vail into what we always thought of ourselves as. But then, as things happen, it's been a long time since we've really had new development. And now we see that, and we're in the process of reinventing ourselves again. We have almost $2 billion of private development going into the town entitlement process right now. So over the next, starting in the spring for the next 5 to 10 years, there's going to be a lot of construction in Vail. We're creating a whole new base area that's in West Lions Head that's, in theory, going to be a whole brand new type of base area. What the community's pulling for is one that's a nice mix of people living in that base area full-time, living, working, but also great condos for guests, great shopping, great nightlife, great experiences to just further what Vail is and just stay on that trajectory and try and stay on the forefront of ski towns.
It's really cool.
It is cool. It's a little different than Salida and Buena Vista, and I don't know that I don't know where we are on that bell curve, but
I think we're still climbing.
Climbing.
I think you guys are climbing. I mean, you've been improving. Without the dollars that we have, your climb is much slower.
Yeah.
But you're definitely, like, Buena Vista is totally on that climb, and they still have a way to go.
Yeah. And I would say a thought that came to mind while you were talking about that is being really careful, again, that we're creating infrastructure and community for the people that are here all the time, and the people that want to feel like it's home too. I'm talking about owners and second homeowners, so that we're not just creating it for the weekend tourist. You've got to have like a rec center and trails to use.
But you also want, I love the weekend tourists.
Right. They need to come, but they like to come because it feels like a community that's usable, with usable spaces and usable walkable, bikeable, everything.
Yep.
Yeah.
But we are very welcoming of those people. Like in the Great Recession, Vail, happily we are a destination resort, but we're also a drive-to resort.
Mm-hmm.
So after 9/11, in the Great Recession, people from Denver were able to drive up for the day, and that kept things going. And we love that for them.
Yeah. That's really interesting. Lots to think about.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's nothing's easy. Certainly nothing worthwhile is easy.
No. And building these communities is over years and years of kind of a struggle between all of those different entities.
And it definitely doesn't happen overnight. It's a very slow process. But
so we're going to shift, I think.
But it can move in the right direction. It's a good thing. I think Vail's best days are ahead of us. I'm very optimistic about the future here. And it's really important, and this is a good lesson for all the other, but there's a lot of anti-growth sentiment.
Yeah.
Growth is not bad if growth is on your terms.
Yeah. Right.
And growth is the tool that allows you to provide those services for your community.
When you don't have a lot of other industry.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not, growth is neither good nor bad. There's good growth and there's bad growth. And happily, I believe Vail has done a really good job and been very tight with its boards and its commissions and the citizens, making sure that the growth is on our terms and we are still Vail. We've not lost our soul. Despite what some of the anti-growth people will say, we are still very much Vail and we're a real community.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of those people have headed out of Colorado already. Colorado got discovered as and blew up. So
right. I think we're going to shift to talking a little bit more about the Colorado Association of Realtors and some of your president-elect.
Yes, so I start my term December 1st as president-elect.
So my understanding is that you ran your campaign on a conversation listening before talking. And what did you hear from realtors across Colorado, and how will that shape your priorities as president?
Good question. Big question. So first of all, when I was on council, and I keep going back to that because that was really a formative part of my life, I couldn't go into the supermarket to run to get milk and butter and leave, because it would be, which I love because I'm a schmoozer and I like to talk. Obviously, I love to talk. So people would engage. It was an engaged citizenry. But I learned that people want to be heard and listened to and engaged with, whether they're anti-growth or pro-growth, whether they were on my side on an issue or not. And in fact, I really made it a point, and I learned that you really have to spend more time engaging with people on the so-called opposite side of an issue, that it's really important to hear what they have to say. And most people are aware that they're not going to get 100% of what they want. It's, kindergarten kids think they're going to get 100% of what they want. And a lot, like mine always did. But adults, for the most part, recognize that compromise is the way to go. So if you can incorporate some of the ideas of the other side, it works really nicely. And I truly believe that leads to better governing, because you have to represent everybody. And it's the same thing at the Colorado Association of Realtors. We have city realtors, we have rural realtors, we have suburban realtors, we have big local associations, small associations. Plus, as you guys know, we're in a period of transition in the real estate business, but also the whole world. And so we have to be really careful with what we do. It's very important to be listening and engaging. And so that was a big preamble to an answer that I'm trying to formulate in my head as my mouth is moving. What I heard is, so most of the people that I talk to are the voters, and the voters for the Colorado Association of Realtors are are the directors.
Oh, gross.
Engaged in the organization. There are some states that the voting is open to all members. In Colorado, it's just the directors. But generally speaking, the directors recognize the importance of organized real estate. So it's not so much, because I'm a firm believer in the importance of organized real estate, especially in this crazy world we're living in right now.
And can I add to that really quick, just for like our general audience membership? So at the local level, we have local associations, like here it's Realtors of Central Colorado, Vail, and some Board of Realtors has their own. And then we have the state association, and then we have a national association of realtors. And so I'm on the board of directors as someone who works with the local association. That's usually how it goes in Colorado, is we ascribe at a local level, which brings us to the state level, and the state level represents us at the national level, so that we're organized.
Agreement. Yeah. So we have the three-way agreement, so that you can't be a member of one with not being a member of all three.
Yep.
And, I'll just give my little quick pitch about organized real estate. There's so many huge, powerful institutions, from government to Wall Street, individual, very large brokerages that have been consolidating, that are pushing and pulling at this industry. And historically, while the National Association of Realtors and some of the locals in some of the states have made mistakes in the past, nothing's perfect. Organized real estate has always tried to keep our clients, our consumers, home buyers and homeowners in mind when we're doing the advocacy. And we're the only countervailing force against the forces of money and government.
Yeah.
So it's really important that we do the right thing, because housing, not just for small resort towns, but for everyone, housing is infrastructure, it's shelter, it's one of the basic needs. And then on top of that, in the United States, housing plays a ridiculously large portion of not just the entire economy, because we're 20% of the entire economy, but also the individual economy of each family. The amount of multi-generational wealth that we create through real estate, it really, in the United States, since pensions have gone away, housing is really the only way of building that wealth for most people. So it's so important that it doesn't just become a free-for-all, and that there's some sanity in it, and that the National Association of Realtors, the states, and the locals are advocating for their communities, for property rights, for the affordability, for all of these things, that it's just so important for us to be there. So happily, going back to the question, when I was talking to the directors, most of the directors recognize that. Most realtors who are involved at any level of the organization recognize the importance of the work that we do. So, but everybody recognizes that we are in this very precarious position with the advent of new technologies, with the discovery of the amount of money that middle-class community member realtors make, and Wall Street wants a piece of that. I mean, there's so many pressures trying to transform the industry. And once again, just even with growth, change is not bad. Change is neither good nor bad. There's bad change and there's good change. And I feel like, as a leader in CAR and a leader in the local association and my roles at the National Association of Realtors, I am working to make sure that the change that occurs is good change, not bad change.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that, because change is going to happen either way. And we just need to direct it in a positive or negative direction. But yeah, I concur. Of course, I'm serving in local and state capacity as well. And I think when I was a baby realtor, about 9 or 10 years ago, you do what comes right at your face. Like, you just take care of the people that you need to take care of in the town you're in. And that's really all you see for a little while. And you do start realizing the effects that government and public policy has on people's lives and their largest asset, and whether or not they can even acquire that asset.
Right.
And so,
move out. Now, one of the things that we are advocating, I was just in DC a week and a half ago, going through the halls of Congress, and there were 5,000 of us realtors in DC lobbying our politicians and their staff members. And one of the main things that we talked about is taking the capital gains exemption from $250 for a single $500.
Yay! It's about time.
To doubling that to $501 million, because those numbers were from 1997.
Yeah, they haven't changed in 30 years.
It is time to make that change.
Wow.
And I guarantee.
Say that again for our listeners, because I want to make sure we heard that.
Yeah.
Okay, so the way it is right now, and the way it's been since 1997, is if you sell your home, you have, as a single person, a $250,000 exemption on capital gains from your profit. If you're married, filing jointly, you get $500,000. But a lot of people who would normally be downsizing at this point are sitting on quite a bit of equity on their houses, which is a good thing, but they don't want to pay an exorbitant amount of capital gains tax when they sell, so they're waiting to sell. So the National Association of Realtors and the states and the locals, we are working really hard, and hopefully it's going to happen, to double that exemption to $500,000 for an individual and $1 million of exempt.
And it would be more in line with what the property prices have become.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
Ideally, they would then index that to inflation, but
we'll see.
That's another step.
Like we start the conversation, sometimes it's better to get something than to get
nothing at all. Yeah.
Yeah. Being pure is wonderful, but if you get nothing, you're just pure.
Yeah. So yeah, that brings me back to this last state legislative session, which we just rehashed a little bit with Brian Tanner on our podcast. And on every issue, it's a matter of, do we do some good or do we do nothing at all? And working with, within those parameters of like, well, it's better to get to here than it is to have nothing, no footing or no ground. I was super impressed. It was my first legislative session working on the Legislative Policy Committee. I could not believe what we as an association accomplished. I think we're probably one of the most successful lobbying associations. And I think that's because we don't align politically. It's because we're very much for people and what is good for people and business owners in the state. And we get stuff done.
Absolutely. Other trade associations, when they're lobbying, very much are lobbying for their industry.
Yeah.
How can their industry make more money? How
we can't
can
do
it
that.
have less regulation? We are lucky in that we lobby and advocate for homeowners and homeownership.
Yeah.
And that happens to align with what our industry needs to thrive. But really, we're the good guys.
Yeah. And it's really fun. It's fun being at the Capitol and knowing you're not there for yourself. You're there for people and what they need as a stage. Yeah. And it was incredible to me. Very, very.
So the latest housing bill that is now a little bit stuck with a presidential signing, but it was a bipartisan bill, but it was not passing the Senate. And 3 days before 8,000 or 6,000 realtors arrived in D.C., some votes changed. And we got it passed.
Yep.
With veto-proof majorities. The first bipartisan bill in, I can't even remember how long, just overwhelmingly bipartisan. So hopefully it gets signed very soon and it helps
it
the
will
housing.
help. Yeah. If it gets signed, it will help.
We not only do positive advocating for bills to pass that help homeowners, we also stop a lot of bills. And that's why a lot of people don't know exactly what we do, because at all levels of government, at the local, at the state, and at the national, there are quite a few proposals that get made that are pretty crazy and could be very damaging.
And I would say anybody should go back to the Brian Tanner episode and listen to some of that, because we rehashed.
We stop them. We stop them in their tracks. We stop them in committee, or we make changes. If they're not so bad, we can make certain changes that we can live with. So we are the good lobbyists. Lobbying is, that seems to be the theme of this. Lobbying is neither good nor bad. There's good lobbying and bad lobbying, and we're the good lobbyists.
Yeah. Well, I think one of those examples that we brought up in the previous podcast was the vacancy tax, which I know could have really affected a town like Vail and Salida. So that's just one example that no one will really know about unless they follow the legislative session very closely. You also have chaired, or are you still chairing CAR's Insight Advisory Committee currently? Okay. And that is a think tank that looks at what's coming before it ever really hits the headlines. And what is an issue on your radar right now that mountain towns should be talking about, but maybe we're not because we don't know as much as you do?
Two things. One, as the chair of the Insight Advisory Committee, we are not prepared to we don't have any public facing.
Yeah, that's true. You can't say we think this way or that way about it.
We are in the think tank stage of identifying issues and discussing them with outside experts and amongst ourselves.
Research
but I
based.
can answer a question as someone who pays attention to what's going on, and I'm always looking for productive ways to procrastinate from the things I need to do. So, I mean, obviously the one that everyone is talking about, so it's in the headlines, but it's a continual change, is AI. That's an issue that, I mean, obviously the Inside Advisory Committee is investigating that and coming up with things like that. But what's interesting about the Inside Advisory Committee is we're not looking for individual tools that you can use as an agent. And if you guys want to talk to me about individual tools as an agent, I'm perfectly happy talking about that because those are here now.
Yeah.
But what the Inside Advisory Committee is trying to do is look at 30,000 feet above and say, what's going to happen to the business in 10 years from now? Are there going to be realtors? Are there not going to be realtors? And if there's no realtors, what happens to the associations? Who does the good lobbying? I mean, all of these are important implications of these changes. Here I go. So, like with change and with technology, AI is neither good nor bad. There's good AI and there's bad AI. It's a great tool and it can empower us to do great things and be better realtors. But if somebody just relies on it to do all the work, they're going to be worse realtors.
Yeah. And we'll have less of that, please.
And then an interesting thing that came up, this is a great story. So a lot of people talk about the potential job loss because of AI. Mm-hmm. And it's very obvious that there are going to be jobs that are lost, that go away. But when you look at the history of technological change in the past, when cars started becoming mass produced, blacksmiths lost their jobs. And people who drove carriages with horses lost their job. And people who delivered hay to the stalls throughout the city lost their jobs. But there were new jobs. And besides even the obvious auto mechanics, what's really cool is things that no one even anticipates. So like the ski industry, which is near and dear to all of us in Colorado, didn't really get going until automobiles were around, because you couldn't be a recreational skier unless you could get to the mountain. And most people don't live in the mountains. So yes, blacksmiths lost their job, but lift ops got theirs, and ski patrollers got theirs, and hoteliers, and all these restaurants and everything. So there's all of these jobs that are going to get created in the new economy that we can't even guess what they are.
It's fun to think about.
Yeah, that's a great way of thinking about it, for sure.
It's not, that analogy is not mine. I got to give credit to Keith Robinson from Real Estate Unfiltered. But
okay.
It's a great way of thinking about what potentially could happen.
I appreciate that. You said you were negative, but that was pretty positive.
Yeah, I play positive on TV.
Okay, sounds
when
good.
I'm laying awake at night at 4 a.m.
Maybe different in tone. Well, we sure appreciate all of your insights today. It's fun to think about. I agree with Ashley. A lot of the same themes have come up throughout our podcast in having a town decide who are we going to be, and being very self-aware and standing behind that vision, if you will, so that we can progressively work together to have good change. Because if we don't have that, it feels like it could be off. And then we're looking around in 20 years and trying to figure out how that happened. Something we don't want, how that all came about. So we have some rapid fire questions, if you're willing. This is fun for people to get to know you. I'll let you start us.
Yeah. How about what is it? Land with a view or walkable down to downtown?
Say that again.
Land with a view or walkable to downtown? Where do you want to
More
live?
a bowl person.
Yeah.
You're too social to be out on land with a view.
I live in the mountains, but I'm a city person.
Okay.
There you go.
What was your first job?
First job that I got paid for?
Well, I remember hearing a story about you. This was when you were a guest on another podcast of you were up skiing and then I think you got the phone call while you were on the ski hill about being on town council. Or you're in the middle of a meeting.
Yes.
While you're out skiing.
But first job from way back when, I did a lot of food service stuff. And I also did some retail.
Yeah.
I come from a long line of retailers and food service people. My great-grandfather, who I'm named after, and great-grandmother, they had a restaurant on the Lower East Side in New York. That was a very popular restaurant back at the turn of the century. So, but I've been a DJ in Jerusalem.
Oh, wow.
To having a record label, to working in the convention business, flipping burgers.
Wow.
When I was in grad school, film classes. I was a director and freelance producer director. So
now you're directing listing videos.
Yes. Well, I try not to.
Leave that to somebody else. What did you go to grad school for? I don't think I read that about you.
I have a master's in comparative literature, film studies, and pop culture theory.
Cool. How fun.
Vocational training for reals.
Yeah, no kidding.
So what would you do if professionally or personally, if money was no object?
There's the dramatic side of me that would say I'd do exactly what I'm doing right now. But that's not true. That's bullshit. I would do more traveling. But I'm not a sit on my butt person. And I would probably be investing in businesses, helping people start businesses, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I can totally see that. Be out there chatting with people and probably still working locally and at the state level politically a little bit.
Yes, definitely.
So do you have a mantra or a personal motto that you'd be willing to share with us?
That's the key that I'd be willing to share. Just good and bad is, it's not really a mantra because I don't say this, and I'm not much of the affirmation type person. If I look in the mirror, it comes out negative. So, but philosophically, I do believe for the most part, good and bad evens out. Yeah. So if you're in a bad spell, be prepared because something good's going to happen at some point. But then the get pissed at me for saying this is when things are going too good, look out. There's going to be a shoe that's going to kick you in the ass very soon.
So it all balances.
Well, yeah,
so it all balances.
There you go. Well, thank you so much for being on the show with us. We really appreciate your time and
this was great.
Insights.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and we'll probably have more questions for you in the future. I think as we interview town council members, and I think connecting with other municipalities in our small towns that are currently developing on that bell curve, it's great to have each other to visit with and figure out what works and what didn't.
Yeah, so, and maybe next year when the legislative meetings, because I know you were on LPC, maybe we can do like a little live report or something from DC because I'll be there. Hopefully the two of you, it's really an amazing conference to see that power, but it would be really cool to do, like, since you're doing it with Zoom now, we can do something from DC, from the convention. And
that would be great.
A shortened podcast with just a report on what's going on. Realtors are working on in DC.
Would love that.
That's so exciting.
Okay. Thanks so much, Mark. We'll talk to you soon.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
This episode of Real Estate in the Rockies is brought to you by Collegiate Peak Law and Mediation. Hi, I'm Ashley Kappel. I help people make smart, informed decisions when it comes to real estate, especially when things get complex. From contracts to land issues, I'm here to bring clarity and confidence to the legal side of your transaction. I offer legal services and mediation.